The first time my hands stopped working, I was holding a coffee cup at my desk. Regular Tuesday morning, nothing special about it. I'd just gotten off a call with a client about their quarterly projections, feeling pretty good about closing the deal, when suddenly my fingers just opened. No warning, no pain, nothing. The mug dropped straight down, coffee splashing across my keyboard, and financial reports. "Ryan, you okay?" My colleague Sarah jumped up from the desk next to mine, grabbing napkins from her drawer. "Yeah, sorry, just slipped," I lied, staring at my hand like it belonged to someone else. I flexed my fingers experimentally. They worked fine now. Completely normal. "Guess I need more coffee," ironically. She laughed and helped me clean up the mess, but I couldn't shake this weird feeling that something had just gone very wrong in a way I didn't understand yet. My name is Ryan Mitchell, and I'm a financial analyst at Crawford & Associates in Boston. 31 years old, decent apartment in Somerville, reasonable social life, regular gym membership I actually use. By all external measures, I had my life together. Clean-cut guy in suits and ties, the kind of person clients trust with their retirement accounts. But I had this secret. This thing I'd been doing since college that nobody knew about. Not my friends, not my family, not the women I'd dated over the years. I kept it locked away in a separate compartment of my life, completely isolated from everything else. Every few weeks, usually on Friday nights when I had the weekend ahead of me, I'd transform my apartment into a different space. I'd pull out the clothes I kept hidden in the back of my closet, behind the winter coats and storage boxes. Dresses, skirts, blouses, things I'd carefully selected and purchased online over the years. I'd spend hours getting ready, doing makeup, styling a wig, becoming someone else entirely. Her name was Rachel. That's what I called this other version of myself. Rachel who loved vintage dresses and red lipstick. Rachel who felt comfortable in her own skin in ways Ryan never quite managed. Rachel who existed only in the privacy of my apartment, never seen by another living soul. It started in college, sophomore year. I was dating this girl named Amanda, who was really into theater and costume design. She was working on some production and needed to practice makeup techniques. Asked if she could use me as a model since her roommate wasn't around. I figured why not? Seemed harmless enough. She spent about an hour working on my face, explaining contouring and highlighting and all these techniques I didn't understand. When she finally let me look in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. She'd transformed my features into something softer, more feminine, almost beautiful in a way that made my chest feel tight. "Wow, you make a pretty girl," Amanda said, laughing. She meant it as a joke, a casual observation. But something clicked in my head that day. Some door opened that I didn't even know existed. I couldn't stop thinking about it. About how different I'd looked, how that different appearance made me feel something I couldn't name. After Amanda and I broke up a few months later, I started experimenting on my own. Bought some makeup from the drugstore, practiced in my dorm room when my roommate was out. It was terrible at first, looked like a clown or a kid who'd gotten into his mother's cosmetics. But I kept practicing, watching tutorials online, learning the techniques. Then I bought my first dress. Just a simple black dress from a thrift store, nothing fancy. Wore it alone in my room and felt this rush of something I couldn't explain. Not sexual, not exactly. More like relief. Like I'd been holding my breath for 20 years and finally remembered how to exhale. Throughout my 20s, Rachel became this regular escape. My pressure release valve. Work stress getting too intense? Rachel time. Family obligations overwhelming? Rachel time. Relationship ending badly? Rachel time. She was my coping mechanism, my secret therapy, my way of accessing emotions and parts of myself that Ryan wasn't allowed to express. But it was always controlled, always contained, always temporary. A few hours here and there, then back to regular life. I never let it bleed into my professional world or social circles. Total separation. Two completely distinct identities that never intersected. Until last year, when I decided it needed to stop. I'd met this woman named Jennifer at a friend's wedding. She was smart, funny, beautiful, worked as a marketing director for a tech company. We hit it off immediately, started dating seriously. After a few months, I could tell she was thinking long-term. Marriage, kids, the whole traditional package. And I wanted that too. I really did. But I knew I couldn't have both. Couldn't be the husband and father she deserved while also maintaining this secret double life. It wasn't fair to her or to any future children. I needed to make a choice. So, I chose to quit. Cold turkey. No more Rachel. No more dressing up. No more secret weekends. I was going to be Ryan full-time, completely, without reservation. I packed up all of Rachel's clothes, shoes, makeup, everything. Drove it to a donation center on the other side of town where nobody would recognize me. Got rid of every trace. That was March 15th. I remember the exact date because it felt momentous. The day I finally grew up and let go of this childish habit that had held me back for too long. Jennifer and I got engaged in May. Beautiful proposal at this restaurant overlooking the harbor, everything perfect. She cried, I cried. We called our families who were all thrilled. Wedding planning started immediately, her mother getting involved, my mother getting involved, everyone excited about this new chapter. I threw myself into being the best version of Ryan I could be. Focused on work, got promoted to senior analyst. Spent time with Jennifer's family, building those relationships. Went to the gym more regularly, ate healthier, stopped drinking as much. I was becoming this ideal version of masculine adulthood that everyone approved of. And I was miserable. Absolutely, profoundly miserable in ways I couldn't admit to anyone, including myself. The coffee incident happened 3 months after I'd quit. 3 months of suppressing Rachel, ignoring her, pretending she'd never existed. I told myself the hand thing was stress-related. Wedding planning is stressful. Everyone knows that. The fact that my fingers spontaneously stopped functioning for a few seconds was just anxiety manifesting physically. Nothing to worry about. Then it happened again. And again. Random muscle failures, always brief, always unpredictable. My leg would stop working mid-stride, and I'd stumble. My jaw would lock up mid-sentence. My hand would freeze while holding something. Never long enough to cause serious damage, but enough to be alarming and disruptive. I went to my doctor, Dr. Harrison, who ran a bunch of tests. Neurological exam, blood work, MRI, the full workup. Everything came back normal. Completely, frustratingly normal. Could be stress-related muscle tension, she suggested. Are you under unusual pressure at work or in your personal life? Just normal wedding planning stuff, I said. Nothing major. She prescribed some muscle relaxants and suggested yoga or meditation for stress management. I took the pills religiously, tried the meditation apps, went to a few yoga classes. Nothing helped. The random muscle failures continued, getting slightly more frequent. Jennifer started noticing. Hard not to when I'd randomly drop things during dinner or stumble for no apparent reason. Maybe you should see a specialist, she said one evening after I'd knocked over a wine glass. A neurologist or something. This isn't normal, Ryan. I'm fine, I insisted, maybe too sharply. Just clumsy lately. I'll be more careful. But I wasn't fine. And on some level I didn't want to examine, I knew exactly what was wrong. My body was rebelling. After years of cooperating with Rachel's existence, after years of that regular release and expression, I'd suddenly cut it off completely. And my body was not handling the withdrawal well. It sounds insane when I put it that way. Bodies don't work like that. You can't develop physical symptoms just from suppressing a hobby or a habit. That's not how medicine or biology functions. Except apparently, it was exactly how my body functioned. The breaking point came on a Saturday afternoon in August. Jennifer and I were at a department store registering for wedding gifts, one of those tedious tasks that somehow takes hours. We were in the kitchen section debating plate patterns when my entire right side just stopped working. Arm, leg, half my face, all frozen. I collapsed sideways into a display of coffee makers, sending ceramic mugs crashing to the floor. Jennifer screamed. Store employees rushed over. Someone called an ambulance. The whole scene was chaotic and terrifying. By the time the paramedics arrived, the symptoms had passed. I could move everything normally again, like nothing had ever happened. They checked my vitals, asked about stroke symptoms, strongly recommended I go to the emergency room for evaluation. At the hospital, they ran every test imaginable. CT scan, another MRI, EEG, cardiac workup, more blood work. Kept me overnight for observation. Everything, once again, completely normal. The neurologist on call was baffled. "We can't find any physical cause for these episodes," he explained, standing at the foot of my hospital bed while Jennifer held my hand. "No evidence of seizures, strokes, or neurological disease. Your brain and nervous system appear to be functioning normally." "Then what's causing it?" Jennifer asked, her voice tight with worry. "Possibly conversion disorder," he said carefully. "It's a condition where psychological stress manifests as physical symptoms. The symptoms are real, not imagined, but the underlying cause is psychological rather than physiological." "You think this is in his head?" Jennifer's tone had gone cold. "Not in the way you're thinking. Conversion disorder involves real physical symptoms caused by subconscious psychological processes. It's not something the patient is consciously controlling or faking. It often occurs in response to severe stress or trauma." After he left, Jennifer looked at me with this expression I couldn't quite read. Concern mixed with something else. Doubt maybe. Or frustration. "Ryan, is there something going on you haven't told me about? Something stressful or upsetting?" "No," I said automatically. "Work is fine, we're fine, everything's fine." Clearly everything is not fine if you're collapsing in department stores. "I don't know what's happening," I said, which was true and also completely false. I knew exactly what was happening. My body was staging a full-scale protest against the suppression I'd imposed on it. It was demanding Rachel back, and it was willing to shut down major muscle groups to make its point. But I couldn't tell Jennifer that. Couldn't explain that the solution to my mysterious medical condition was putting on a dress and makeup. She'd think I was insane. She'd call off the wedding. She'd tell everyone, and my carefully constructed life would collapse. So I stayed quiet and made plans to see a therapist like the hospital recommended. Dr. Patricia Chen's office was in a modern building near downtown, all glass and steel with uncomfortable modern furniture in the waiting room. I'd never been to therapy before, always figured I could handle my own problems. But clearly that strategy wasn't working anymore. She was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, with kind eyes and a direct manner that was somehow comforting. "Tell me what's been happening, Ryan," she said once we'd gotten through the initial paperwork and introductions. I explained the muscle failures, the hospital visits, the normal test results, the conversion disorder diagnosis. She listened without interrupting, taking occasional notes. "And the doctors believe this is psychological in origin?" she asked when I finished. "That's what they said. Stress manifesting as physical symptoms." "Do you agree with that assessment?" I hesitated. This was the moment. I could keep lying, keep hiding, keep protecting my secret. Or I could tell the truth and deal with whatever consequences came. "I think I know what's causing it," I finally said. "But it's complicated. Most things are. Take your time." So I told her. Not everything at first, but the basic outline. That I'd had this habit of dressing in women's clothing as a stress relief. That I'd quit cold turkey several months ago. That the physical symptoms started shortly after and had been getting progressively worse. She didn't look shocked or disgusted or confused. Just nodded like this was perfectly normal information to receive. "And you believe there's a connection between stopping this activity and the onset of your symptoms?" I mean, it sounds crazy when I say it out loud. But the timing lines up too perfectly to be coincidence. "It's actually not that uncommon," she said, which was not what I expected to hear. "When we suppress significant aspects of our identity or important coping mechanisms, especially abruptly, our bodies often react. The stress of constant suppression has to go somewhere. In your case, it's manifesting as conversion symptoms." So what do I do? I can't just start dressing up again. I'm engaged. I'm getting married in 4 months. That part of my life needs to stay in the past. "Why?" she asked simply. "Because it's not normal. Because my fiancé doesn't know about it and would never understand. Because I can't be a husband and father while also doing that. I need to be a man, A full-time actual man, not whatever confused thing I was before. Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment, studying me. Ryan, what you're describing, this expression through clothing and presentation, it's not something you can just turn off because it's inconvenient. It's clearly a significant part of how you process emotions and express aspects of yourself. Suppressing it completely isn't working. Your body is making that very clear. So, what's the alternative? Tell Jennifer the truth and watch her leave? Lose everything I've built. The alternative is finding a way to integrate all parts of yourself instead of trying to amputate one. But that's work we'd need to do together over time. For now, I think we need to address the immediate physical symptoms. They're going to keep getting worse until you give your body what it's asking for. You're saying I should dress up again. I'm saying your body is in active rebellion against your suppression. You can keep fighting it, but based on the escalation pattern, I'm concerned about what might happen next. These episodes are getting more severe. What if the next one happens while you're driving? Or in a more dangerous situation? She had a point. The thought of having a complete muscle failure while behind the wheel, or on stairs, or anywhere that could lead to serious injury was terrifying. Just once, I said, to see if it helps. To prove the connection. That's a start, she agreed. But Ryan, this isn't going to be a one-time fix. This is going to require ongoing work and honest examination of who you are and what you need. I left her office feeling like I'd been given permission and also handed an impossible task. How was I supposed to integrate Rachel into my life as Ryan? They existed in completely separate worlds by necessity. Bringing them together meant exploding the careful compartmentalization I'd maintained for years. But first, I had to test the theory. Had to know for sure if Dr. Chen was right about the connection between suppression and symptoms. The problem was I'd gotten rid of everything. All of Rachel's clothes, makeup, accessories. All donated months ago. I'd have to start from scratch, which meant shopping. Which meant risk of being seen or recognized. I waited until the following Saturday, when Jennifer had plans with her bridesmaids for dress fittings. Told her I had some errands to run, which was technically true. Drove to a mall in a suburb where nobody would know me, feeling like a criminal planning a heist. The women's section of the department store felt simultaneously familiar and foreign. I'd done this shopping countless times before, but always with the confidence of knowing exactly what I was looking for. Now I felt awkward and exposed, certain everyone was staring and judging. I grabbed a few items quickly without trying anything on. A simple dress, some tights, basic necessities. Paid cash, avoided eye contact with the cashier, got out as fast as possible. Bought makeup at a drugstore, again trying to be invisible and unmemorable. Back at my apartment, I laid everything out on my bed and just stared at it for probably 20 minutes. This felt like crossing a line, like admitting defeat. I'd been so sure I could overcome this thing through willpower alone. Going back felt like failure. But my left hand started trembling as I stood there, that familiar warning sign that an episode was coming. Fine. I'd do this once, prove it helped, then figure out next steps. I went through the process slowly, remembering the routine I'd perfected over years. Shower, shave carefully, moisturize. The physical preparation that Rachel required. Then the clothes, the makeup, the wig I'd ordered online and had delivered to my office to avoid Jennifer seeing the package. It took about 90 minutes total, much longer than it used to. I was out of practice, and my hands kept shaking, making the makeup application difficult. But finally I was done, and stood in front of my full-length mirror. Rachel looked back at me. Older than I remembered, the stress of the past months showing in ways makeup couldn't quite hide. But still her. Still this other version of myself that I'd tried so hard to kill. And the shaking stopped. Immediately, completely stopped. My hands were steady, my muscles relaxed. The constant tension I'd been carrying for months suddenly released. I sat down on my bed, still wearing the dress, and cried. Big, ugly, shoulder-shaking sobs that I couldn't control and didn't try to. Relief mixed with grief mixed with anger at myself for being this way, for not being strong enough to overcome it, for failing at the simple task of being a normal man. After I'd cried myself out, I just sat there existing. Being Rachel in the privacy of my apartment, like I'd done hundreds of times before. Except this time it felt different. heavier. Like I was acknowledging something I couldn't unacknowledge. I spent maybe 3 hours that way. Not doing anything particular, just being. Watching TV, making tea, sitting on my couch. Normal activities in abnormal circumstances. And the whole time, no muscle failures, no tremors, no symptoms. Just calm, peaceful functionality. When it was time to change back before Jennifer came home, I felt the anxiety creeping in again. The stress of returning to Ryan, of hiding Rachel away, of maintaining the suppression. Sure enough, within an hour of changing back into my regular clothes, my right hand started trembling. At my next appointment, I told Dr. Chen everything. "So, the symptoms completely resolved while you were dressed?" she asked. "Completely. And came back within an hour of changing. The connection is undeniable." "How do you feel about that?" "Honestly, trapped. I can't keep doing this in secret. Jennifer and I live together half the time. We're getting married soon. There's no way to maintain this without her finding out. But I also can't tell her. She'd never understand or accept it. Have you considered that you might be underestimating her?" "I know her, Dr. Chen. She's wonderful, but she's also traditional. She wants a husband who fits a specific mold. This doesn't fit that mold. So what's your plan? Continue suppressing until your symptoms get worse? Have a medical crisis on your wedding day?" She wasn't wrong. The current trajectory was unsustainable. Something had to change. What if I just did it occasionally? I suggested. Like before. Keep Rachel separate, just bring her back enough to prevent symptoms. "That might work temporarily," she said carefully. "But Ryan, based on what you've told me, Rachel isn't just a hobby or a stress relief technique. She seems to be a fundamental part of your identity that you've been expressing since college. Trying to keep her locked away and only letting her out in controlled doses, that's still suppression. Your body might accept it for a while, but eventually it'll rebel again." "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that you need to do some deep work on understanding who you are and what you need. Not who you think you should be, not who Jennifer or your family or society expects you to be. Who you actually are when you strip away all the external expectations." That sounded both necessary and terrifying. Over the next few weeks, I fell into an unsustainable pattern. I'd dress as Rachel a few times a week, usually when Jennifer was working late or had other plans. Just enough to keep the symptoms at bay, not enough to feel satisfied or authentic. It was like being on a restrictive diet, constantly hungry but managing not to starve. The muscle failures decreased, but didn't disappear completely. I'd still have occasional episodes, especially when I'd gone too long between Rachel sessions or when stress was particularly high. Jennifer noticed the improvement and attributed it to the therapy, which I guess wasn't entirely wrong. But maintaining the secret was exhausting. I had to be constantly vigilant about hiding clothes, scheduling alone time, making sure Jennifer didn't see anything suspicious. It felt like having an affair, except with myself. The guilt and stress of deception started taking their own toll. Then in October, everything came crashing down in the worst possible way. Jennifer came home early from work one day, something about a client canceling a meeting. I didn't hear her key in the lock because I had music playing. Didn't hear her calling my name as she walked through the apartment. She opened my bedroom door and found me sitting at my computer, fully dressed as Rachel, researching something for therapy. The look on her face went through about 5 different emotions in 3 seconds. Confusion, recognition, shock, disgust, betrayal. She didn't scream or yell. Just stood there frozen, staring at me. "Jennifer," I started, standing up, which somehow made it worse because now she could see the full outfit. "What is this?" Her voice was very quiet and very controlled, which was somehow scarier than if she'd been yelling. "What am I looking at right now?" "I can explain." "Please let me explain." "Explain what?" "Explain why my fiancé is wearing a dress and makeup in our apartment? Explain what possible reason you could have for this." I told her everything. The whole story tumbling out in a panicked rush. College, Amanda, Rachel's development, the years of secret expression, my decision to quit, the medical symptoms, Dr. Chen's diagnosis, the connection between suppression and physical breakdown. She listened without interrupting, her face becoming increasingly unreadable. When I finally ran out of words, she was silent for a long moment. "How long have you been lying to me?" she finally asked. "I wasn't lying. I just didn't tell you about this part." "That's what lying is, Ryan. Or should I call you Rachel? I don't even know who I'm talking to right now." "You're talking to me. Same person you've always known. This doesn't change who I am fundamentally." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "It changes everything. You've been living a double life our entire relationship. You hid this massive part of yourself from me. How am I supposed to trust anything about you now?" "I hid it because I knew you wouldn't understand. Because I was trying to be what you needed. What I need is honesty. What I need is a partner who trusts me enough to be real with me." Her voice was rising now, anger breaking through the shock. "Instead, I get this, whatever this is. A secret life, a secret identity, probably secret feelings about who you really are." "It's not like that. I'm not trans, I'm not gay. This is just something I do for stress relief and emotional expression." "And that's supposed to make me feel better? That my fiancé secretly wears dresses for emotional expression and has been lying about it for 2 years?" There was nothing I could say that would fix this. No explanation that would make it okay or understandable. I'd broken her trust in the most fundamental way. "I need you to leave," she said finally. "Get changed into your actual clothes and leave. I need to think, and I can't do that with you here." "Jennifer, please. Leave, Ryan. Now." I changed quickly, gathered some things, and left. Drove around aimlessly for hours, eventually ending up at a hotel. Called Dr. Chen's emergency line and left a message. Sat in that sterile hotel room wondering how everything had fallen apart so completely. Dr. Chen called back within an hour and talked me down from the panic spiral I was in. Helped me think through immediate practical concerns rather than catastrophizing about the future. By the end of the call, I felt slightly less like the world was ending. Jennifer texted me the next day asking for space to process. I gave her that space, staying at the hotel, going to work, seeing Dr. Chen twice that week instead of once. We talked through everything. The lying, the compartmentalization, the deeper questions about my identity that I'd been avoiding. "Do you think you might be transgender?" Dr. Chen asked during one session. "No," I said automatically, then paused. "I don't know. I've never really let myself explore that question. Rachel always felt like a part of me, but not the whole me. But maybe I've been in denial about how significant that part is." "There's no rush to label it," she said. "But I think you need to start being honest with yourself about what Rachel means and represents. She's clearly not just a hobby or stress relief. She's a core part of your identity that emerges when you're able to be fully yourself." A week after the discovery, Jennifer finally agreed to meet. We sat in a coffee shop, neutral territory, both of us exhausted and emotionally wrung out. "I talked to my therapist," she said. "Told her everything. Got some perspective. And I understand better why you hid this. I understand you were scared of judgment and rejection. But Ryan, I can't marry someone who keeps that kind of secret from me, who doesn't trust me with fundamental parts of who they are." "I know. You're right. I should have told you from the beginning. The thing is, if you had told me on our second or third date, I probably would have been okay with it. Would have taken time to understand, but I could have accepted it. But you didn't give me that chance. You made the decision for me that I couldn't handle it, and then you lied by omission for 2 years. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Jennifer. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix broken trust. I don't know if anything can fix that." She was quiet for a moment, stirring her coffee even though she hadn't added anything to it. "I think we need to postpone the wedding. Maybe indefinitely. I need time to figure out if I can move past this, and you need time to figure out who you actually are." It was the outcome I'd been expecting but dreading. What does that mean for us? I don't know. Maybe we'll work through this and come out stronger. Maybe this is the end. I honestly don't know right now. But I do know that I can't marry you in 4 months. Not with everything so unsettled and uncertain. We canceled the wedding. Made phone calls to family and vendors, returned deposits where possible, broke the news to increasingly confused and concerned relatives. The official story was that we needed more time, that we'd rushed into things. Nobody needed to know the real reason. Jennifer moved out of my apartment and back to her own place. We went on a break, not quite broken up, but not really together either. Existing in this limbo state while we both figured things out. And without the pressure of hiding Rachel from Jennifer, without the imminent wedding forcing me to suppress everything, I started exploring more openly what this all meant. Not just sneaking a few hours here and there, but genuinely living as Rachel for extended periods. Entire weekends, whole evenings after work, gradually expanding her presence in my life. My symptoms improved dramatically. The muscle failures stopped almost entirely. The tremors disappeared. My body relaxed in ways it hadn't in months, the constant tension finally releasing. I came out to a few close friends, testing their reactions. Some were confused but supportive. One friend completely cut contact, couldn't handle it, said it was too weird. Most fell somewhere in between, needing time to process but ultimately accepting. I told my sister Catherine, who I'd always been close with. She listened to the whole story, then said, "So that's why you always seemed kind of stiff at family gatherings. You were suppressing a whole part of yourself." "Yeah, I guess so." "Well, stop it. Life's too short to spend it pretending to be someone you're not. If dressing like this makes you happy or helps you express yourself or whatever, then do it. Anyone who can't handle that isn't worth having in your life." Her immediate acceptance made me cry, which I seem to be doing a lot lately. Through the winter, I continued exploring. Started seeing a gender therapist in addition to Dr. Chin to work through the deeper identity questions. Joined some online communities, connected with others who had similar experiences. Learned vocabulary and concepts I'd never had access to before. Gender expression, gender identity, the difference between the two. Non-binary identities, gender fluidity, all these ways of being that existed outside the strict binary I'd always assumed were the only options. I wasn't sure exactly where I fit in all of that. Some days Rachel felt like the real me and Ryan felt like the costume. Other days Ryan felt authentic and Rachel felt like an exaggeration. Most days I felt like some combination of both, existing somewhere in between. What I didn't know for certain was that suppressing Rachel completely had nearly destroyed me. My body had literally refused to cooperate, had broken down in increasingly dramatic ways to force me to pay attention. And now that I was listening, now that I was allowing both parts of myself to exist, I felt more whole than I ever had before. Jennifer and I met occasionally through those months. Coffee dates, walks, careful conversations. She was doing her own work, examining her assumptions and expectations about relationships and gender. It was hard for her, challenging everything she thought she knew about me and about what our future would look like. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted during one of our meetings in late January. "I want to be understanding and supportive, but I also have to be honest about what I need. And I don't know if I can be married to someone who's sometimes a woman." That sounds terrible and close-minded, but it's how I feel. "It doesn't sound terrible," I said. "It sounds honest. And you're allowed to have limits and boundaries. You're allowed to want a traditional marriage with clearly defined roles. That doesn't make you a bad person. But it might make me the wrong person for you. Maybe. Or maybe we find a way to make it work. I don't know, Jennifer. I'm figuring this out as I go." We decided to officially end the engagement, but stay in each other's lives as friends. It hurt, losing the future we'd planned together, but it also felt like the right decision for both of us. She needed someone who fit her vision of partnership, and I needed someone who could accept all of me without requiring constant suppression. Work presented its own challenges. I'd been having the symptoms for months, and people had noticed. HR had gotten involved, offering disability accommodations if needed. When the symptoms improved after I stopped suppressing Rachel, people noticed that too. Started asking questions about what treatment had finally worked. I had to make a decision about how honest to be professionally. I could keep the two worlds separate, continue being Ryan at work and Rachel only in private. Or I could start integrating them, being more authentic across all areas of my life. After a lot of conversation with my therapists and soul-searching, I decided to come out at work. Not by showing up in a dress one day, but through careful conversation with HR and my direct supervisor. explained that I had a more fluid gender expression than they'd seen, that I might start presenting differently at times, that I needed workplace flexibility around pronouns and presentation. My company was surprisingly accommodating. They had non-discrimination policies that covered gender identity and expression, even if those policies had never been tested with someone like me before. We worked out an arrangement where I could present however felt authentic on any given day, with appropriate bathroom access and pronoun respect. The first day I went to work wearing more feminine clothing was terrifying and liberating in equal measure. I didn't go full Rachel. That felt too extreme for a conservative financial firm. But I wore more androgynous pieces, subtle makeup, let my hair grow longer. Small steps toward authenticity. Reactions from colleagues varied. Some people were supportive, complimenting my outfit or asking thoughtful questions. Others were clearly uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact or giving me wide berth in the hallway. A few made inappropriate comments that got reported to HR. But I survived it. Showed up the next day, and the day after that. Gradually, it became less remarkable. People adjusted or they didn't, but either way I was still there doing my job well and refusing to hide anymore. My body rewarded this authenticity. The symptoms that had plagued me for months never returned. No more random muscle failures, no more tremors, no more episodes. My body had been trying to tell me something all along, and now that I was finally listening, it could relax. I started understanding my physical rebellion as a form of communication. My subconscious mind, unable to express its needs through words, had used the only language available, physical symptoms. It had escalated systematically, getting louder and more dramatic until I paid attention. Until I stopped trying to amputate part of myself and started figuring out how to integrate instead. Looking back now, almost 2 years since that first coffee mug incident, I can see the progression clearly. My body gave me warnings, small tremors, minor failures. When I ignored those, it escalated to full side paralysis and collapse. It would have kept escalating too, probably to life-threatening levels, if I hadn't finally listened. That's the thing about suppression. About trying to be someone you're not, to fit into boxes that don't match your shape. It doesn't just affect your mental health or emotional well-being. It affects your physical body in concrete, measurable ways. Your body keeps the score, as they say. It remembers everything you're trying to forget. I tried to quit dressing up. Tried to bury Rachel forever and be Ryan exclusively. My body refused. Not through conscious choice or decision, but through involuntary physical rebellion that made suppression literally impossible. At first I resented that. Felt betrayed by my own biology, angry that I couldn't just willpower my way into normalcy. But now I'm grateful. My body saved me from living a lie. Forced me to confront truths I would have kept running from indefinitely. Pushed me toward authenticity, even when I was terrified of what that meant. These days I exist in between. Sometimes more Ryan, sometimes more Rachel. Often some combination I don't have a neat label for. My pronouns are he/they, my presentation varies by day and mood, my identity is complex and fluid in ways I've stopped trying to simplify. I date occasionally, mostly people in queer communities who understand gender complexity. I'm honest from the start about who I am and what they're getting. Some people can't handle it, and that's fine. The ones who stick around are the ones I actually want in my life. My relationship with my body has transformed completely. Instead of seeing it as this thing that betrayed me or needs to be controlled, I see it as a partner in my journey toward authenticity. It communicates with me constantly, through comfort and discomfort, through ease and tension, through health and symptoms. I've learned to listen to those communications instead of overriding them. When I start feeling stressed or disconnected, when that old tension begins creeping back in, I know what it means. My body is telling me I'm suppressing something again. I'm trying to be someone I'm not to please external expectations. Time to adjust, to check in with myself, to make sure I'm honoring all parts of who I am. I'll never forget those months of physical breakdown. The terror of losing control of my own body, the confusion of normal medical tests, the helplessness of not understanding what was happening. But I'm also grateful for them because they forced a reckoning I desperately needed. My body refused to let me keep living a lie. Thank God it did.